This is some more forward-looking things. You're in for a treat. Generally, we had this rule when we never talked about things that were forward-looking. Right? We only talked about. But this space is changing so fast. It's so exciting. You know, we want to sort of run these things by you and again get feedback. So the world, you could say, is changing or has changed. You know, in the old world, humans and systems that they own interface with the data. Now you have agents that can do that for you and on your behalf. The key thing here is agents can do more. And by that I mean, you know, I'm a trained computer scientist, and so I understand some domains that I studied. Now, if I don't have an understanding of some domain, for example, we're doing a patio extension in our house, and there's different types of roofs. I'm in Texas, so there's different types of roofs you can put. My contractor says, these are the rules, and it's going to cost you more money. I said, well, okay, I don't know anything about this. But I put it in ChatGPT, I put it in Williamson County, and I said, hey, is what this guy's saying true? Here's the blueprint. And then it told me, yes, here's the city regulations, and here's the different sort of technologies with a metal roof, with a standing seam and interlock. And so now I'm an expert. Now I understand, I'm not an expert, but I understand how those things work, and this is the same concept here. If you don't know how to do forecasting in a very specific way, the agent can help you do that. But the key thing you have to bring to the table is structured thinking. As long as you have that and you can sort of iterate and ask the questions, I think it's going to be very, very, very powerful. And you'll see in the demo that Aniket will show you how sort of productive you can get. How fast can it take care of some of the rote things? This is that next slide. This is one of my favorite slides because sort of there's two sort of schools of thought in the industry. There's one school of thought that says, hey, everybody can do everything. You can be a generalist. Product manager can write code. Marketer can design software. And then there's the other school of thought which says, hey, experts can become that much better. And I think there's truth for both, but I'm in the second camp. And I'll give you a concrete example. About 18 months ago, I told my devs, you must use AI. I am pressure from my board. AI. I said, you must use AI. Help me prove or disprove this thing. Okay? So we bought a tool called Augment, which is built on top of Claude. And you know, initially, there was a lot of, if you don't know, devs are the most skeptical people in the world. Okay? It's just so hard for them to for me to say, look, go trust this. But now, 87% of my team uses it. And my best guys are that much better. That was what I was not expecting. I thought the level would be raised, but my best guys are that much better. And so that, I think, into the data engineering discipline, that discipline is about a year away from that, I think. Because I talked to my friends in the industry, and they're highly, highly skeptical. They're highly, highly skeptical, which is exactly what I got from my team a year ago, or a year and a half ago, right? So I think that's coming. And what could that look like, right? So my belief and my personality is, I want to be at the beginning of the curve. I want to be able to sort of guide the direction. I want to be able to influence where you're going. So each of you individually and collectively as an organization has a decision to make. There's no wrong answers here, right? But where on the curve do you want to be? Do you want to be early? You want to experiment? Do you want to try? Or do you want to sort of wait and for it to mature and get more proof points? Because some of you might be in regulatory or auditing and you can't get things wrong. And so it's perfectly fine. I'll give you an example of my wife. She's at Deloitte. She's been at Deloitte for 19 years. She hates this stuff. And no matter what I kind of try to do, she's like, no. And she's had poor experiences. Right? And I'm giving you these examples because I'm super exuberant about it because I've lived this for the last 9 months. Like that's all I've been working on with the team. But there are real world experiences where it doesn't work. So I told my wife, let's do an experiment. let's use AI for something you want to do personally, not for work. So she's training to run a marathon in December, and so she's into health, she's tracking her metrics, and so she wanted to buy an Apple Watch. So I said, put in ChatGPT what features you need, tracking, sleep, and ask it to recommend a version of the Apple Watch. Now, mistake I made is my wife is cheap, so she used the free version. Now, the free version doesn't have web search, so it's 2 years old. So he came back and said, buy Apple Watch 9. And so she comes, she's like, okay, we're going to buy this. I said, no, this is 2 years old. What do you mean? She's like, no, your AI told me this. I said, first of all, it's not my AI. And second, you get what you put in. So I said, give it the apple.com website and tell it to look there. Then it says Apple Watch 11. But now what happened, right? She's got no trust. She says, I use this thing, and it gave me the wrong answer. So yes, we have to protect. Why am I telling you all this? Is, we have a mindset of self-service, as I said earlier. But we have to make sure we build the experiences around all this where you have trust. Today, with 26.1 and our new server and new cloud launch, you get the analyst agent. And we've put guardrails on it that it is read only. Even if you ask it to go create data, it's going to say, no, I'm not allowed to do that. In this session, we're going to talk about the data engineering agent. But vision-wise, we expect to have a multi-agent architecture within the platform, which is a very common pattern we're seeing across the industry. And then what do I mean when I say agent? To me, an agent has 3 properties. It has a system prompts, which gives it personality and goals. It has tools, things it uses to accomplish those goals. And then it has guardrails, what you can and cannot do, right? And it's very important. That definition is very important because that's a foundation of what we build. Right? And of course, it's not exposed to everybody, but I want everybody to understand that's kind of how we approach it. And then as we sort of expand on this, you will be able to, as the consumer of the agent, you will be able to sort of modify these things, give your own context, enhance the prompts, right? We're going to have some base stuff, but you'll be able to sort of expand on those parameters for your business and your needs. So this is a view, simplistic view of what the world was in the past. You get bronze, silver, gold. You get some people in the loop. They use automation. They use dbt. They use Airflow, and they build these pipelines and manage them. In the future, you have a data engineer with an assistant that we've been talking about. And in the demo, you'll see some of those rote tasks. How can they be automated? How can the thinking? That's the interesting. When you watch the demo, kind of focus on how it thought about the problem and came up with the plan to execute. Like, that's the interesting part for me. And we are very focused on giving it goals or a system prompt that focuses on the 80%, right? Like the common tasks, nulls, duplicates, fill in missing values, going from bronze to silver to gold, schematizing and then doing aggregates, right? Things that you can somewhat control. So we're going to focus on that and make sure it doesn't do weird things, and then sort of open it up once we have more proof points that this technology works the way we think it's going to work. And then talking about trust, right? So this is the experience within Dremio. You saw the demo. Those of you here in the earlier session, you saw this demo. I got a really great question at a customer call yesterday, and they said, well, what's the confidence score on this SQL? Like, how do you know, how accurate is it? How do you know that, right? So you know what I did? I messaged him in the meeting. I said, hey, can you ask it? He literally asked the agent, what's your confidence score? And look at this. It comes back and says it's 0.88, 88% overall. And if you want to increase this confidence, I have this one clause, coalesce season type, reg equals reg, and that might bring null rows. So it actually gives you its thought process. So when we design the experience, we'll build that in so you can click and say, okay, tell me how you got this. Tell me what your thinking was. And then you can go validate it. Right? That's our goal. We want to expose all this. But it's really cool. Right? It gives you that thought process. Additionally, what we could do is ask another LLM to check the first LLM's work. Right? So there's all these experiences that we're thinking through that we want to build, but the key is we want to have you have trust. Okay. Now, I'll call Aniket over, and he'll walk you through this extensive demo.
Thanks, Rahim. Let me hit next here. All right. So this demo is us walking through a data engineer within Dremio who actually has a raw data lake. That data lake is anonymized telemetry data. So what you're seeing over here are telemetry data coming back from systems, from stuff in the field, and that's really what the bronze layer is. And as a part of a data engineer, like this is us dog fooding our own, this is us dog fooding, right? So what we are trying to say is using this in our own data lake, can we figure out more information about how Dremio is being used and things like that. In order to do that, with the agent now, the data engineer is able to say, hey, let me first look at the silver layer. Can you go ahead and create a silver layer view with using the jobs and using some common tables, just the very first step that any data engineer would try to do. And the agent immediately started doing this. Now this is, as Rahim mentioned in the slide earlier, this is a little forward-looking in the sense that in this case, the agent has been allowed to go ahead and do creation and do DDL statements, because that's exactly what a data engineer would want to do. And so here you can see that it is going ahead, creating the first view, which is a big view within the silver layer. It created that. The view is right there. The view is all ready. Now, how do we know we have confidence in this, in the view that is created, in the data that is coming through? A data engineer's second step would be, okay, let me go and do some data quality checks in here. So the prompt here was, look at the view that you have and identify quality issues. The usual set of quality issues. He didn't even specify a whole lot of what kind of quality issues, but given that this is a data engineering agent, it was able to figure out, oh, I know the standard set of things: nullability checks, missing data, duplicate data, and there are a few more. As I'm talking, you can see it's just scroll by, and it is figuring out null count, so that it's checking nulls, it's checking non-nulls, it is checking distinctness. It is going through all of these standard set of checks, while the data engineer themselves doesn't need to do all of this. It is just going ahead and doing it for him. In addition to that, we just talked about the confidence score. As you can see, these SQL queries are obviously audited. They are a part of your regular audit. The SQL queries have comments. It is generated correctly, and not only that, it also figured out things like, oh, I do need to anonymize here. It just scrolled by, but as the prompt here suggested, it figured out that it had PII, it had usernames, it went ahead, anonymized that, and finally you have a full silver layer view with anonymized data. Now the data quality assessment has completed. There would need to be some amount of deduplication to happen. Some nulls, incomplete data needs to be dropped until it is fixed later and then rehydrated, and so on. So that was presented to the data engineer, and okay, let's go ahead and make those changes. And then off it goes. It started doing it. It started doing all the things, and at that point, now that we have this view corrected, we can tell the agent to go ahead, create a gold layer view, which actually builds on top of this clean silver layer view, and actually create something that I now can use directly for my business layer, right? Business layer. So while this is happening, I just wanted to flash this picture. This is the data model that the data engineering agent actually came up with. So the details of that weren't too pertinent to what I'm saying, but I just wanted to show the complexity of the model that it actually created. And with that, it is going ahead and doing all these creations, creating all the dimensions first. After that, it will go ahead, create the fact. It will go ahead and create the fact table. It will make sure that it will not go ahead and do a cluster by in a view as pointed out, but it will actually create the view and then go ahead from there, because it's not a table. You won't be doing clustering in a view. Finally, after that, making sure that the data quality checks that it actually recommended earlier are actually still in place. It is going ahead doing those validations to ensure that at the end of it, at the end of it, the confidence score, right? The confidence score that we talked about, it adheres to its own interpretation of the confidence score. So it has now gone ahead, created the gold layer views, as well as validated that it followed the data quality checks it came up with, and finally presented a summary of, here's what I have done for you. These are all the things. These were all the data quality issues that were found and fixed, and these are the recommended next steps beyond what we told it to do. And here we can see that all the dimensions and the fact tables are created, and now using this, the last step is, let's see if it actually makes sense, if it actually works. So let's point the agent to the gold view and actually ask a business question. So the question that is being asked is, hey, looking at the job history, the telemetry that I'm collecting, can you tell me the CPU usage over time for the queries or jobs that are being run on my Dremio, or the Dremio instances that I'm collecting the telemetry for, plus the overall health metrics over 30 days, and so on. So, right, these are the kinds of questions that we would like to get answers for from our telemetry, our internal data lake, so to speak. And the data engineer was able to get to this layer just purely by talking to the data engineering agent. And at this point, he's now using the agent just like what you saw earlier in the day, using the agent as an analyst agent. And there we go. It is now breaking, it is doing a status for the 30-day status, a 10-day status, and so on. And at the end, here we go. We have an overall 30-day rolling window summary. We have a trend for 30 days. And then as it scrolls below, you would see it has failure and success for various job telemetry that we calculated. And that's how you can get from really raw data, clean, silver, gold, validation, and finally analysis and inferences right within the agent. So with that, I'll pass it back to Rahim.
Can you pause it?
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah. So instead of talking to the slide, I want to highlight a few things. Let's go back. Yeah. So as we sort of build this out, some of the things to sort of think about is it creates this, and then it goes and it's doing the cleaning tasks, right? The transformation tasks. And so I'll pause here. So this is working code, and the thing we've changed is we took the analyst agent and we said, hey, now you can write, and here's some of the parameters that you can use. But what are some interesting things we're thinking about, right? So you ask a question, and then I actually give you a plan. Right? And I figured out I need to check for null. I have to anonymize usernames. I have to normalize types. I didn't even give it a specification. I just said check for hygiene and consistency issues. So I give you a plan. So as we design and refine this experience, right, that's the sort of conceptually, that's how we're thinking about it. You give it a prompt, it gave you a plan. That's not SQL yet. It's a plan. And then from the plan, you go to SQL. So we're going to build these experiences where we can sort of expose that stuff. And then as I show it to customers and we sort of get early feedback, one of the pieces of feedback was, hey, where is this plan stored? Because at the end of the day, I go to engineer or analyst and say, how do you get this view? And they're like, go read the view, right? But the whole thought process, the iterative thought process was in that chain of thought, right? So what we will do is, in the end of the day, we will also introduce something like memory, where we go store the prompt, the chain, the reasoning, and the result as an iceberg table in the system per user, but auditable by administrators. And so you have history, you have audit, you can figure out how somebody got somewhere, right? So this is, again, early. The thing works, but now we have to make sure there's trust, there's auditing, you can track how something came about. And so with that, we'll sort of pause here.